Anyway, the song Home to Us is just so catchy, so fun, because it's Paul and Ringo together singing about the place where they grew up as teenagers. And in the past 29 or so years, we've gotten Paul and Ringo doing vocals together on songs, but never in the strict sense of a duet. You know, we got Ringo in the chorus of the song Beautiful Night. We got Paul and Ringo together on the gorgeous song Walk With You from 2010 from Ringo's album Why Not. And we got Paul a little bit on background vocals on the Ringo song We're on the Road Again. But none of those were strict duets with both of them on lead vocals until this song. And obviously the lyrics are personal to them because they're singing about how their hometown was a rough place, but it was home to them. And it was after World War II, so things were rough. And, you know, it's such a catchy song that I've noticed, and other people have said, that it sounds like the perfect song to be the new theme song for a TV sitcom. Similar to Friends. It could be a new huge hit show about, I don't know, young teens in 1950s Liverpool post World War II. Who knows? That could be a hit. You know, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of new shows every year on various platforms no one's ever heard of. This could be one of them. But I don't think Paul and Ringo are ready to produce TV shows. George Harrison, back in the 80s, maybe. He was producing a lot of films then. But anyway, let's get on to the rest of the album. Now, this next one might be well, I already said earlier my favorite track is Days Left Behind, but this track might be another one of my all-time favorites on the album. And it's Life Can Be Hard, one that Paul has talked about for the past 5 years or so. There was that great documentary in 2021 of Paul talking to Rick Rubin called McCartney 321. I only saw it once, but you know, he mentioned this song in that documentary. So I probably should go back and watch that. But anyway, you know, this is another song from Paul in a style of the 1920s or 1930s, like Broadway show tune, similar to Honey Pie and Baby's Request and You Give Me the Answer. And honestly, not only could it fit in a Broadway show, it could fit in an old-fashioned movie, really. It's really beautiful. The lyrics are so great. Life can be hard, but then that's when we start to put it together again. She calls me on, and I'm enchanted by her beauty. Very typical Paul, discussing the struggles of life, but then mentioning how the struggles are rectified because of someone's beauty and their love. And if I should plan to still dance, watching her sway, I know there's always a chance she'll put me right and be excited by the notion. Again, this kind of song could have been on any Paul McCartney album in the past, 60 years. I mean, maybe it's because he's in his older age that he's writing a song like this. I don't know, but his older voice does suit the song perfectly. She loves me even when life presses harder. That's when we don't need the words. I can see when there's no food in the larder, which I guess is a British term for a cupboard. Oh, those crazy Brits. I know that she wouldn't care. Very similar line to that lyric in the song My Love, where he sings, even when the cupboard is bare, I know that she will still be there, my love. Yeah, I think that's the line. Maybe the starlight that shines in her eyes sings to the moon in her hair. Who else would think of these lyrics? These are so just magical lyrics. Each time we meet, there's a look of surprise. She sprinkles love everywhere. Again, these are just brilliant lyrics. And I was saying before about how, the mark of a great songwriter is, would these words sound as beautiful if they were a cappella, if they were read like a poem. And in this case, yes! You strip away the music and this sounds beautiful. She sprinkled love everywhere, enchanted by her beauty, excited by the notion. Oh, God. Again, if I'm still alive in 20 or 30 years, this will still be a classic McCartney song that I'll play again, and I'll feel such great joy. And, now we get to the last 4 tracks of this brilliant album. And I gotta say, the last 4 tracks, and really every song on the second side, is just a brilliant little piece of joy. Now we get to the first Star of the Night song, which it's a bit of a lullaby song to I was going to say to a child, but it could be a lullaby to anybody. And it reminds me of this song by Tom Petty on his first solo album, Full Moon Fever, called All Right for Now, where I think he's singing to his young daughter, named Adria, and he's really just singing about how you're all right for now. Don't worry about what else is happening. You're all right for now. And this song is very similar to that, although I think Paul is just singing about himself, not to anybody else. Even when it's raining inside, something tells me it's all right. Positive emotions that died seem to come back, shining bright, like the first star of the night. First star of the night shows her light to me, and I know my little world is still all right. Like the first star of the night shows her light to me, and I know my little world is still all right. So, yeah, like I said, it's just a song about Paul and feeling that everything in his life is quite all right and being ready to go to bed at night. And he's comparing his beautiful lover in her eyes to the first star of the night. Again, what a beautiful thought. And, you could say it's Paul McCartney, he's extremely rich, of course his life is all right. Or you could not be cynical and say that these words can relate to anybody. It's one of those songs that you could play if you're having a bonfire outside and you just want to think about the stars up in the sky. It's lovely, it's beautiful. And there's a song at the end called Salesman Saint, which I mentioned before is about his dad, the salesman of cotton, and his mother, a saint. My father was a salesman. My mother was a saint. And what I like about this song is that he has a trumpet in the song and some big band brass instruments. Of course, they're a tribute to his dad, who did play a trumpet, and he wanted Paul to play a trumpet, but Paul refused to do that because you can't play trumpet and also sing, which is why Paul took up the guitar. Working every day working every God-given minute to make enough to pay the rent, as Paul's family was a struggling class family, as was the family of George Harrison and Ringo's mom. Of course, John's aunt raised him, and she was much more affluent than the parents of George, Paul, and Ringo. She was she lived in Mendips Avenue and made money renting out rooms in their house. The war was nearly over, as it was in the 1950s in England. The peace would soon begin. I'm sure Paul would hope for peace. Living on the edge of the city when the roads were going in. They couldn't take any more. That's a beautiful chorus. They couldn't take any more. But they had to carry on. And I think by they couldn't take any more, they probably mean 2 things. One, they couldn't take any more, as in they couldn't have any more children. because they struggled with money so much. And two, they couldn't take anymore, as in they were stressed out, they couldn't handle anymore. Very common thing for working class moms and dads. But they had to carry on, carry on. So they learned to carry on with laughter and a song. Again, typical Paul, who's all about using laughter and music to cope with life. And of course, his parents would carry on with those things because they would have these parties with their large extended family where they would just sing songs and make jokes and to help them through the night. They're going to make it through. The only entertainment they had, a piano and a radio, hot tea and cigarettes, enough to keep them on the go. Another generation, yearning to be free, learning how to keep it together, and run a family. We've most of us have had families that struggled to make it by financially. But Paul's family was much worse off than, well, I shouldn't be comparing, obviously, but, it was post World War II. It was in a town that was still recovering from that because a lot of places in the town were bombed during the war. And they had to make do with living that was in a house funded by the government, and they worked without making much money, raising two boys, and it's been obvious Paul's entire life how much that impacted him as a father and as a husband, and writing so many songs about family and about dads and moms. He's written multiple songs about things his dad said to him, with the song Put It There, the song Do It Now. I think Do It Now is a terrible song. I think Put It There is a gorgeous song. He's written so many songs about mothers and women. Daytime Suffering is all about the struggle that mothers go through. And, I think this album, it probably won't be Paul's last album, but if it is, it will be very fitting, because his first single as a solo artist was Another Day, which is a song about this young woman who's very bored and sad in her life and struggles at her job at some office where the paper grows. And she's very sad, and I guess gets through it by having an affair with a man who's possibly married. And the man does not commit to her. And so, to start off Paul's solo career with that song, and then possibly end it with the last two songs on this album, would be really, really fitting, seeing how Paul has written about women in his career, and, writing about 8 or 9 songs total about telling stories about women. I think that would be quite fitting if it is his last album, and you had that bookend of those songs. And speaking of mothers, the final song on the album I'll get to now is about mothers. Mama Gets By. And it's considered to be an epic finale to the album because there is a beautiful, lush orchestration to it. Let's go through the lyrics that are beautiful. Mama gets by while Papa gets high. She made enough to raise a family. She's working all day to bring in the pay, taking good care of me. Give me every opportunity. And if it rains, she never complains. It is enough to make it through the storm. Papa gets back and heads for the sack as soon as he steps inside the door. But she doesn't mind. She sees it all before. Now, at first I assumed this song was about Paul's marriage to Linda and what they went through in the early stages of their marriage. But he does sing in this song, "She's taking good care of me." So clearly in this song, it's from the point of view of a child. So it can't be about Linda. And is it about his own mother, Mother Mary? I mean, he sings that the Papa gets high. I don't think that his own father, Jim McCartney, got high. So again, it's probably just a song about. It's probably a song about all mothers everywhere in the world. And, you know, in this song, the father in this song is not doing his fair share of raising the child and the housework. So, similar to that classic Wings B-side, Daytime, Nighttime Suffering, it feels like Paul is commenting on the unfair power dynamics of a marriage.
Tony, are you in there? Tony!
She doesn't care.
Sorry.
She's got her own philosophy of life.
Can I get rid of this Colbert?
Yes. It wasn't too long ago that she agreed to be his wife, even though it complicated. She takes it in her stride. What are his silly faults compared to what she feels inside? Because she loves him with all her heart and soul. Mama gets by while Papa gets high, actually. Like I said, what a weird lyric there. Papa gets high. That could be referring to getting drunk, getting high on drugs. Like I said, it probably is just a song about a fictional character. And as I mentioned earlier, I think it's lovely that his first single as a solo artist, Another Day, tells this sad story about a young woman who was unhappy. And the final song on his latest album, Poison Under Lane, is about a mother who struggles to raise her family and in her marriage, but she carries on with her important work raising a family. And yeah, those are all my thoughts on these songs. And I do want to mention that Paul played multiple instruments on this album, possibly dozens. It mentions electric guitar, acoustic guitar, of course, bass, piano, harmonium, harpsichord, Rhodes organ, the Moog, Wurlitzer, Mellotron, organ, spinet, recorder, tape loops, drum, and percussion. Now, my big complaint about this album and the package is that in the lyric sheet, in the personnel sheet, they don't say which instruments are played on which songs. Now, we can kind of guess that, but it'd be much nicer if they just made a lyric sheet that told you which instruments were on which songs. Obviously, Ringo played drums on the song Home to Us, where Ringo also did a duet with Paul on Home to Us. But on the other tracks, Paul played the drums. And on As You Lie There and on Ripples in a Pond and on Come Inside, Paul's drumming is absolutely outstanding. I mean, Paul, you know, with Paul and George and John Lennon, those three guys were virtuoso musicians on multiple instruments. You know, John was kind of a decent guitarist. I don't think he ever did much on guitar that was outstanding, but he had songs on the piano that were marvelous. Well, I take back what I said about John guitar. He was more than just average. He did the finger picking thing on the song Julia, and of course on his first solo album, Plastic Ono Band. He does piano on a few of those songs, and it's beautiful. Well, actually, that was Billy Preston. Never mind. I'm gonna stop now before I keep saying things that are wrong. But Paul, I think, is the most virtuoso of all three of those guys I just mentioned. Because if you look at Paul McCartney albums and the personnel listing, he played multiple instruments on all of them. You know, on McCartney 1, he played everything. McCartney 2, he played the synths and the keyboards and a lot of other instruments and drums. He can do it all, really. Ringo, of course, is very self-deprecating about how he can't really play much besides the drums, where he is a virtuoso drummer. But anyway, I'm going to give more commentary on the album in other videos, but those are all my thoughts on these songs for now. And you can look forward to more videos from me about my thoughts on this album. But this is all for now. Thank you all for watching. Give the video a like. Comment what you think about this album if you have it. And subscribe to the channel, because I'm always making new videos each week.